Hey everybody, I'm just out for the day, doing a little wheeling, checking out some campsites out here. Got Lucas with me. He's over there enjoying some shade right now. But we're checking out the brand new Bluetti AC50B power station. This is a nice little unit. I've actually been able to run it for the past month or so, taking it in a number of situations, some long weekend trips. I took it down to Overland Expo for 4 days. I've been really using the hell out of this thing, and I'm super impressed with it. It's nice, it's small, it's portable, it's compact. It does a fantastic job. It is a 448 watt hour capacity, 700 watt inverter. So you can power quite a number of things. On the front, we have two USB-C 65 watts, a USB-A 15 watt, two 120 volt outlets. Those are the 700 watt capable units there. A DC port, the standard 12 volt, like cigarette lighter style port, and a DC input port. Well, for the input, that's what I'm running the Bluetti solar panels off of. So it's giving me some nice power going into the unit, making sure that I can stay charged all the time. Now I've just got it set up here on the ground. I'm staying in front of it. I'm casting some shade on it. It's early morning. The sun isn't fully up, and I'm pulling about 100 watts going into the unit. That's going to charge it relatively quickly. Being a 448 watt hour system, if I'm getting 100 watts into it and it was at 0%, it's going to charge in about 45 minutes. It's not bad. Fairly fast charging because it's not a huge battery. But let's talk about who this is for, all right? It's not a huge power station. It's a small, compact power station. It's not 1,000 watts. It's, under 500 watts. So who is this type of unit for? Well, for us, when we're out on a wheeling trip, we're out for just an overnight, we're out for a weekend, we use this to run a refrigerator. We'll use it to recharge batteries. We'll use it for a number of different purposes. We rarely ever use the AC ports on a power station. This one, I really have no need to ever do that. So it works absolutely flawlessly for everything that we need. The 12 volt port runs a refrigerator without any hiccup at all. And what's really nice about the Bluetti products is they will power up our diesel heater. Very few power stations on the market will run the diesel heater directly off the 12 volt port. Most of them, you need to run them off the AC port with a power converter. The Bluettis, we plug them into the 12 volt port, everything fires up, way more efficient than having to do DC to AC to DC conversion. Don't like that, not a fan, but the fact that we can run it directly off the 12 volt port, that helps us tremendously. But let's talk about how well this thing has worked in actual practice. Now, for when we run an efficiency test or a battery run test that we call it, we take our IceCo VL45, we do this on every power station, we fill it about 70% capacity. It's in a room that will typically run between 67 and 70 degrees throughout the day. So it's kind of like spring, fall conditions in the house. It's not 100 degrees, so keep that in mind, but it's about 70 degrees inside that room that we run it in. And we see how long this will run, a power station will run that refrigerator. Well, it ran it for 46.5 hours. So just under 2 full days. That's without any additional power. Now, when I was out at Overland Expo, I needed to run for 4 days. Well, obviously, it's not going to run a refrigerator for 4 days when our testing in pretty ideal conditions only got me 2 days. Well, that's where the solar panel comes in. And I tried a couple configurations, one being on the ground like this, catching some good rays, but because I was in a pretty confined area of trees, the majority of the sun that I got was mid-afternoon or midday with the sun directly overhead. In that case, I just took the solar panels and I laid them out on top of the hood or the roof of the Jeep. And I was able to keep this thing topped off every single day and completely recharge another power station that I was using to run my MacBook, my CPAP machine, my diesel heater. All the other things that we were running was on another power station, actually an AC70, and it kept that charged up fully as well. So having 200 watt solar panels was huge, because when it's getting sun, it's getting the most that it can possibly stick in there. I'm seeing this spike up to about 120 watts now going in. If I only had a 100 watt solar panel, I'm only going to get half that amount of power. So when it starts dropping, I may only get 50 or 60 watts going in, versus having a 200 watt, I'm going to get 120, 140 watts going in. So 200 watt solar panels, to me, I think are kind of the ideal. 100 watt, if you're going to be in an area where you know you're always going to get fantastic sun, that's great. But if you're like us and you're in different types of conditions where you may have very limited sun during the day, a 200 watt is going to make sure that you take advantage of whatever sunlight is hitting it. So I highly recommend a 200 watt solar panel. For that investment, make that investment once, buy once, cry once, get the better solar panels. You're not going to be disappointed. Now, let's talk about the 700 watt inverter on here. How we test the inverters using a Stoke Voltaics Nomad cooking system. That's an electric cook stove that can go up to 1,000 watts. And the normal mode, if I was at 600 watts, no problem, powered it just fine. If I hit 800 watts or turned it up to 1,000 watts, the AC inverter would simply turn off. Now there is a boost mode on here to allow it to take more power temporarily. So I tried that, and yes, it did allow it to spike up to that 800 or 1,000 watts, but only momentarily. Then what it did is it limited the amount of power going out. So instead of shutting off, what it did is just lowered the output to about 650 watts of output. So I didn't get the full power going into the cooktop, but I was able to actually run it. And at 600 watts, it will still boil water. It will still cook food. That's like having your stove at home on a medium setting. It may not get a pan hot enough to like quickly sear meat, but you can still cook with it. So it does work in that scenario. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to be running high wattage components or accessories, this might not be the right unit for you. Plus, if you're maxing this thing out at 700 watts and it only has a 448 watt hour capacity, you're going to get less than an hour of runtime off that. So this is not really designed for those high power appliances. Charging a laptop, not a problem. Charging drone batteries, not a problem. Things where you're in that, 65 to 100 watts, I think is absolutely ideal for this inverter. But it will go up higher if you need it to. And keep in mind that boost mode will allow it to spike up and power higher power appliances, but you're not going to get that full 1,000 up to 1,000 watts. You're going to get just under 700, which to me, not a deal breaker. That's not what this is for. Now, let's talk about a couple things that I think could be improved on here. There's no perfect product out there, at least not yet. And I hope Bluetti will listen to some of my suggestions and make something that is really, really geared towards the overlanding, off-roading, camping market. While these work, there are some things that could be improved. First off, USB ports. Give us more USB ports, double that. Give us 4 USB-Cs, give us 2 USB-As. almost everything we use is either powered by or charged by USB. So having more USB ports would be fantastic. 2 AC ports, that's fine. We never use them. It's very, very, very rare that we'll even use 1. 2, that's fine. I can live with that. When I see them and they have 6 of them, total overkill. So having 2 ports on here is fine. The 12-volt port, I despise this 12-volt port. Not from Bluetti, but from the industry. It is a horrible, horrible interface for powering things. This will come loose if you are bouncing around on a trail. Now, other Bluetti products have the DC 5521 ports on them. This one doesn't. The 5521 ports are more like a little barrel connector. They plug in and it's a much better connection. I'd really prefer to see something like mini Anderson plugs, something that has a good click to it that's going to keep something secure. This is not secure. Everybody I know who has off-roaded with a refrigerator has had this 12-volt port come unplugged from whatever they had it plugged into. I know one guy, he has his zip tied into his port to keep it from coming unplugged because it happens so often. Please, Bluetti, give us a more secure 12-volt port. Don't care what it is, just make it, we'll adapt to it. Mini Anderson, the 5521s are a good in-between. I'm okay with that, but something that's going to give us an option here besides the 12-volt port. Other than that, I think this is a fantastic unit. Okay, I'm going to talk specs for a moment here. Again, 2 AC ports at 700 watts, the USB-A at 15 watts, USB-C at 65 watts, the carport at 12 volts, 10 amps, or 120 watts. Input AC power, it'll go up to 270 watts of input there. That'll give you about a 2 hour or so, 2 to 3 hour charge time. There's a fast charge mode that'll take it up to 580 watts, which will charge it in 70 minutes. Silent mode, which I see no reason to run it in silent mode, but that'll drop it to 108 watts, take it about 5 hours to charge. On solar panel, it can take up to 200 watts, charge it in 2.5 hours. You can also charge it using a carport. So there's a cable, it will plug into the input and plug into your carport of your vehicle. That's going to take like 6 hours. That you don't get a lot of power off that 12-volt port. It's 16.5 pounds. It's 11 by 7.9 inches by 8.7 inches. So nice and small. So as I said, it's well suited for overnight, weekend camping trips. Absolutely love it for things like that. I'll bring up the Bluetti app. Okay, we've got the app running. So we can see our input. It's running 76 to 100 watts or so. We're not on grid power. We've got nothing going out on the AC ports. The refrigerator is running. It's pulling 37 watts right now. We can turn on and off the DC ports, the AC ports. We can go into our settings here. We can share the device. Don't really know why I would need to do that. A Bluetooth connection. We can have that device display on the home page of the app. What charging mode, the power lifting, that's that boost mode I talked about. I can change it from eco, on or off if I need to. When do I want it to sleep? I don't let them sleep because when you have that turned on, if there's nothing being drawn on it for a while, it will shut off. Well, I don't want it to shut off because sometimes the refrigerators, depending on the one we're using, may have a very long cycle time. You know, if it's nice and cool out, they might not cycle, but every 45 minutes. So I don't want it to shut off because it doesn't detect anything being used. So very simple app, great to use. I can see when I started this video, I was at 90%. I'm at 94% just off the solar panels. And like I said, I'm standing in front of them, so they're not even getting full sunlight. They're working absolutely great. So there's the app. App works absolutely flawlessly. Love it. So do I think it's a good buy? Absolutely. Love the Bluetti products. have always been happy with them. The fact that they power all of our appliances that we need, very, very handy. Now, come summertime, we now have an air conditioner for our tent. This is not going to be a big enough power supply for that. It's going to suck about 200 watts continuous. That means I'd only get a little over 2 hours of runtime on that air conditioner. So I'm going to need something bigger, like the AC70 or a bigger power station. That aside, your diesel heaters, your refrigerators, charging your batteries, your laptop, this is an ideal unit. Now, I'll put all the information down below here, the cost, where you can get it, how to go and find it online. I really, really am happy with Bluetti. Their customer service, for me anyway, has been fantastic. I've never had an issue with them. So if you're into camping, overlanding, wheeling, you want to run a fridge, you want to charge those batteries, check out the new AC50B from Bluetti. You are not going to be disappointed. So thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. From Katarina and myself, stay safe out there with plenty of power, and we'll see you on the trails.